All right, let's talk about something really wild. What if I told you that the biggest secrets of our universe, I'm talking the speed of light, Einstein's relativity, the whole shebang, aren't hidden in some exotic particle, but are actually hiding in plain sight, in the emptiness of space itself?
Okay, think about this for a second, because it's a real head-scratcher. You're on a train, right? You throw a baseball forward. Its speed is just the train speed plus how fast you threw it. Simple. But what if you shine a flashlight from that same train? You'd think the light beam would go faster, but it doesn't. It moves at the exact same speed as if you were just standing on the ground. How on earth is that possible?
And that brings up another huge puzzle. Sound waves have to travel through air. Ocean waves travel through water. Pretty much every wave we can think of needs something, a medium, to travel in. So if light is a wave and it's zipping through the total vacuum of space, what is it waving in? What's the water for the light wave?
So let's get into it. These questions aren't new, by the way. Physics giants like Maxwell and Einstein gave us the rulebook for how light and space-time work, but they kind of left a deeper why question on the table.
And what's so wild is that we have these incredible sets of rules for how nature works. Einstein's relativity, Maxwell's equations for light. They're super accurate, but they don't really explain the why. They're more like observations or postulates, rules that just are. There's no physical reason given for why they have to be that way. It's like knowing every single rule in a game of chess, but having absolutely no clue why a knight moves in an L shape.
Well, this is exactly the gap that a theory called dynamic vacuum field theory, or DVFT for short, is trying to fill. And it does it with a really radical idea. It asks, what if the answer to why isn't in some tiny particle or some exotic force, but in the empty space all around us?
So the core idea here is that the vacuum of space, it's not nothing. It's not just this passive, empty void. DVFT says it's a dynamic physical field. It's the actual fabric of reality, and it has properties we can actually describe.
For the longest time, we've thought of space as this empty stage, just a container where all the physics happens. DVFT completely flips that script. It says the vacuum isn't the stage, it's the main actor. The properties of space itself are what create the rules of the play, the actual laws of physics we observe.
And this isn't just some abstract philosophical idea either. DVFT says the vacuum has real, tangible properties. It has a kind of density, an inertia, that the theory calls ρ0, and it has a stiffness, a sort of resistance to being pushed around, called k0. You can almost think of it like a giant cosmic jello that has its own density and its own jiggle.
Okay, so if space is like this giant field with density and stiffness, what happens when you poke it, when you disturb it? Well, this is where we get the theory's first huge payoff. The answer is, you get light.
The logic here is it's so elegant. You start by modeling space with just those two things, its density and its stiffness. Then you do the math to see how a ripple, a disturbance, would travel through it. And what pops out? The exact mathematical equation for a light wave. It's a perfect match. And here's the kicker. The speed of that ripple isn't just some random number. It's determined only by those properties of the vacuum. And this is where the theory gets really powerful. You know those weird constants you see in physics textbooks? The permittivity and permeability of free space? Suddenly, they're not just these mysterious, random numbers anymore. DVFT says they're just different names for the vacuum's physical density and stiffness. They are literally properties of empty space.
Which brings us right to this beautiful little equation. The speed of light, c, isn't some magic number that was baked into the universe at the Big Bang. No, it's something you can calculate. It's just the square root of the vacuum stiffness divided by its density. And that right there, that answers our first big question. The speed of light is constant for everyone because it's a fundamental property of the medium we are all moving through.
Okay, so explaining the true nature of light would be a pretty big deal on its own, right? But DVFT doesn't stop there. It goes even further. It claims that all the weird, mind-bending rules of Einstein's special relativity, they also just pop right out of the physics of the vacuum.
And it all comes down to one single powerful idea. The basic equation that describes how waves travel through the vacuum has to look the same for everybody, no matter how fast you're moving. The fundamental laws of space can't just change because you're in motion.
Now, this isn't just some neat mathematical trick. It's a hard physical requirement. And for the universe to make this work, to keep that wave equation consistent for everyone, it has to do some really strange things. It literally has to bend the rules of space and time.
They have to stretch and shrink to make the math work out.
So what happens when space and time start stretching and shrinking? Well, you get the most famous predictions of special relativity. Time slowing down, that's time dilation. Objects getting shorter, that's length contraction. Even the whole mass-energy equivalence thing. They're not separate ideas we have to accept on faith anymore. They become the unavoidable side effects of making sure the vacuum's laws stay the same for everyone.
And this means we don't just get the simple E equals mc squared. We actually derive the full relativistic equation, the one with that little gamma factor in it. That's the part that shows how an object's energy and mass actually increase the faster it moves. From this point of view, mass isn't even a thing on its own. It's just a concentrated little bundle of energy, humming away in the vacuum field.
Okay, let's step back for a second and just take in the big picture this theory is painting. It's a huge shift in how we think about, well, everything.
So look at this. It really lays out the whole shift. The speed of light, it's not just a rule we have to accept anymore. It's a physical property of space based on its stiffness and density. Relativity, it's not just some abstract geometry. It's what has to happen because of the vacuum's physics. And E equals mc squared, it's not just a formula. It's an actual description of what mass is, a little packet of energy rippling in the vacuum.
The final takeaway here is, well, it's pretty staggering. DVFT is suggesting that these massive pillars of physics, electromagnetism, relativity, mass, they aren't separate fundamental laws. They're all just emergent phenomena. They're side effects that arise from the properties of one single thing, the vacuum itself. And that really leaves us with one last fascinating question to chew on. If light and relativity are just side effects of how the vacuum behaves, it really makes you wonder, right? What else is hiding out there in plain sight? What other secrets of the universe are just waiting to be found, coded into the fabric of what we used to call empty space?